Yeah, great.
Whoa, this ain't going.
See down the side. And
But I appreciate everybody on the chat tonight for your comments. Well, hello, beekeepers. Happy Thursday. Hope everybody's bees are doing good. Looks like my bees are still struggling up here in the mountains of North Carolina. We actually had snow today. It was cold and windy, 26 degrees with some freezing rain mixed with snow. So all of us are not lucky like some of the folks down south that, you guys got warm weather and your bees are probably already brooding up. So that's not fair, for some of us other folks. So JW, what's the weather like your way? Looks like you got some snow too, brother.
Well, that's no picture. I just want you to feel sorry for me. Except, actually, it's warmed up today, but it's supposed to be up to almost 65 or 70 here today or tomorrow the next day. So,
Yeah.
hopefully, but it's really been windy. My bees hadn't. It's been cool of an evening and the night also. So, but things are going well.
So you still just down one colony, JW?
No, I had visitors out here Monday, the dirty side boys place, and we went through everything. It's not dead, but it's awfully weak, and I haven't been back to it. So it's been so cold the last couple of days. It's just now starting to warm back up.
Wow.
Well, I'm going to probably go down 3 before it's all over. So that's pretty good for me. That's about what I usually run.
That's really good odds. I tell you, you're doing really well compared to some of us other beekeepers, that sometimes I feel embarrassed about how many I've lost this year, but that's part of beekeeping. You try to figure out what you did wrong, or maybe it's just a bad season or some of the stuff that's going on with everybody else that's losing so many colonies, and just try to figure it out and do better the next year. So I always say you're a true beekeeper when you can get, about 70% of your colonies through winter. I think you've kind of met that next level, that you can keep them going. So Kamon, tell me some good news out your way. How's the weather there? I'm afraid to say that it's probably pretty nice.
well, it's March, so it really just depends on the day. But the last 3 days have been brutal, up to 50-mile-an-hour winds on one of the days. Very rough. Blew a couple lids off, but thankfully I was suspect of those colonies. So I got them before it started raining. But it's been, around 60 a lot, and we've had a couple days in the 70s, and it's fixing to get back that way here in the next day or two. So, the bees are brooding up. I've got drone brood, which is good. We have a lot of good-looking bees. We had a good overwintering this year. I'm very thankful for that, and some really strong colonies. So this year and so I'm really thankful that every year we seem to get things a little bit better, and we spend a lot more time observing and monitoring our bees, and it always pays off on the next season. Doing a lot more mite washes, just every colony, making sure that no colonies ever get light at any time of the year on feed, and also keeping a lot of backup queens. Usually we lose a lot. If we're going to lose something, it's from letting a few colonies get a little too high in mites, or usually it is a queen event at a wrong time of the year, and it can be really hard to fix sometimes. But if you already have a queen with some brood, well, it's almost like it never happened when you plug in brood with a queen into a big colony. So we usually start those backup colonies sometime around after our nukes are done in late April, early May. So May and June is when we make up all the rest of the queens that we might need for the year.
Awesome. Well, Kamon, I went to your first conference, and I remember sitting there at a table, and there was a lady and a guy that came by, and they were kind of bickering back and forth with each other, and he was gun ho to get into beekeeping, and I think if I'm not mistaken, they said they bought.
Was that Randy? Is that Randy McCaffrey? Was that him and Elizabeth bickering? I'm sorry, I had to interrupt.
I won't say that. I won't say that. So no, I won't say that. Anyway, it was nice having Randy there at your first conference. So.
Yeah. So this couple were bickering about stuff, and then they were buying something. I interrupted you. I apologize.
Yeah, you're fine. And they ended up wanting. I think they bought 600. They wanted 600 colonies.
Holy smokes!
And I don't even know if they've ever done any beekeeping. And then she kind of didn't want to, and he did.
He's crazy.
And I think even during the conference, one of your speakers even kind of got up and was talking about small businesses and do you want to jump into this or do you not? And that's one of the questions I want to ask you tonight. How much stress does a small beekeeping business put on your family? Mm-hmm. And when do you know that, hey, I'm ready to make that leap? This is going to be what I do for a living. So
well. On the stress side of things, how much stress does it put on your family or you? A lot if you're an idiot. And, if you don't know what you're doing, you are definitely going to be stressed out. And so I know this isn't the answer that I wanted to hear when I started. I didn't listen to this advice and I was an idiot. And so if you can't make 10 hives profitable, you can't make 50 hives profitable. You can't make 100 hives profitable. If you can't make 10 hives profitable, you have no business trying to run 100 or 50 or anything like that. And the calculator is something that we all have on our phones. Everybody needs to use if they're considering running a business. And, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, because when you go into a business mode versus a more relaxed version of beekeeping, it's different. There's more pressure. You have to execute at a certain time. I think there's some merits there. I think a good in-between spot is probably the sweet spot of fun and not shelling out a ton of money. But yeah, if you're going to, really do this as a business, then, oh yeah, you're going to have a lot of learning curves, and it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge, especially if you start calculating, ooh, this is how much I'm spending versus how much I'm bringing in. And then if you let your spouse see that, you might be even in bigger trouble than you realized. So that's why I always keep those numbers here in my office, and I try to hide them somewhere where Laurel can't see how much Kamon just bought from Bob Binney today. Bob twisted my arm. It's always the nice ones that get you. You don't see it coming. Mm-hmm. Hey, Kamon, you're a young guy. You could really use this right here. This would help you out. Well, Bob can't be wrong. What's another $800? There you go, Bob.
Yeah.
But so it can add a lot of stress to you. But I think if you start slow, it's not near as bad. The problem of it is especially when you're young, you're really stupid and inexperienced. And you're often overly ambitious. And that's the problem with youth versus people that have experience. Maybe the advantage of youth is you're a little bit more gung-ho, but you also don't have the experience. And so a good in-between spot is a nice place to be. I feel like I'm about there. Not 100%, but I'm getting there. And, just take it slow. Last year we took bees up to Wisconsin. And I didn't take everything. I only took, where's Laurel? Thankfully, in another room, and hopefully not spying on me again. Likely she is. There's like a protective polycarbonate protection underneath this hat. This is a special hat that protects my skull. I start doing that whenever I see objects fly. So you got to start slow. and you definitely need to be able to get your bees through winter and preserve your equipment for a long time. Sometimes being cheap costs. Being cheap is expensive, and early on, you do things differently. You change your own oil. I still change my own oil, but because it's just so crazy on diesels. But and it's a teaching moment for my kids. I get them to help me with it every time. But I used to make all of my own boxes. I used to make all of my own lids. The only thing I didn't make was the frames. And Bob started that way too. And now he's got employees that do that, but Bob can't do that himself. If Bob was running an operation with just him and Suzette, Bob's time is way too valuable. So you go through different transition periods growing a business. And so, there'll be people that say, you can't save any money building your own equipment. I disagree with that, but you get to a certain point where I'm so busy right now. I'm in very high demand, and I'm not trying to be mean or brag about it or whatever, but I don't have a spare moment. And so, my time now is worth 4 times what it was in my early 20s. And so in my early 20s, I was doing things different. So enjoy the process. Don't rush it, because if you rush it, you're going to lose bees every time. And a lot of times back then, I was not taking the time, partially because of ignorance, and I wasn't coating the top edges and corners of the boxes well with paint, and I was getting a lot of premature rotting that I didn't need. The first year I got into beekeeping, I read Walter T. Kelly's book on how to keep bees and sell honey. I still have some of those boxes because I painted those right. And then I started reading Michael Bush's books about don't paint your equipment because the boxes need to breathe. I don't think he says that anymore, but Michael had some questionable information early on, and I listened to it, and hey, he lived in an area that got like 15 probably inches of rain a year. I live in Tennessee. Nobody rots stuff like we do in this region of the country, and so I think that was part of it too, is location. I'm very interested now in equipment that lasts 20 to 30 to 40 years. Talk about a return on your investment. And so we're trying to tell people to do that, because obviously it saves you money in the long run. So it's just a lot to running a business. But hey, it's a lot. And you have to get pretty serious and technical, and you have to have honest discussions with yourself about where you were wrong and where you were an idiot. So that's not a hobby anymore, is it? So I don't recommend it to everybody, but at the same time, if you want bees to pay for themselves and you want to really get hyper focused, yeah, you can easily break even with this, and you can make money, but you're going to have to be smarter than I was early on. And now, and also, there's an asset growing period, right? And that's what's tough with starting any business, not just beekeeping. If you go start a bakery, you can't afford the top $5,000 mixers and most expensive this and that. You have to grow into it. I didn't start with the 60 frame Kamon extraction line. I didn't start. I didn't get an F-350 until year before last. Uh, I was using an old truck I got for 5,000. I still drive to a lot of my bee yards when I don't need a truck with my 2003 Prius. It has a cassette player, still works. Um, so you got to start small, and even at this stage, I stayed at the cheapest hotel I could find near Bob's, because, can we pay it? Sure, but we're not gonna just blow money in places. So you have to be very money conscious as well, unless you're loaded, and most beekeepers aren't. And if you are loaded, you did something else to get loaded.
And there is a point, in beekeeping. Me and you discussed this before we come on. Is when you get to that point where, okay, this is going to be what I'm going to do, and you finally got to make that decision. And me and my wife, we prayed really hard. Hey, is this what we want to do? Is this where God's leading us to go? And he usually sends you a sign. Yeah, this is what he wants, or hey, you need to slow down in what you're doing. And but there's a point there where you finally say, okay, yeah, we think we've got it, and let's go. And I'm sure you come across that, and we discussed that just a little bit. So,
Oh yeah, 100%. So, I love it. I love what I do. But when you work for yourself, 40-hour work weeks don't exist.
right.
They
And
just
JW,
don't.
yeah, and JW, you know that because you've had cattle and stuff, and I know you probably worked many hours past, and that's what people don't understand as an owner. You know, you're going to put more time in than anybody else is, and that's like Kamon
Mhm.
saying he doesn't have to. You feel that way a lot of times, JW. I guess in your younger years when you was trying to get your farm and everything started, right?
Younger years, the devil. I still put in 80, 90 hours a week. Man.
Well, and so that's where you've got to really enjoy what you're doing, because it's not just about the money. But then again, if you've driven a semi over the road and didn't like it, like I didn't like it, there's some people that do. And then if you worked an office job and you really hated it, maybe it's worth putting in an extra 20 to 30 hours a week, just so you don't have to deal with that nonsense. But it takes time. And I had to drive a truck for 6 years just to financially get in the position to be able to operate a business. And so that's what I tell a lot of the younger guys. You got to, a lot of times you have to do stuff that you don't want to do in order to get where you want to be. And so if you're not willing to do that, you're definitely not deserving to run a business, in my personal opinion. And also, especially if you're a parent, I mean, sometimes you can't always get what you want. And I started driving a truck after we bounced 2 checks in my mid-20s. And I had a young daughter, and my wife was crying because I just wasn't making enough money. I wasn't getting it done, and I'm like, you know what, this is silly. I'm going to go get a CDL, and I did. So that's a good decision. I hated every moment of it, though. Let the record say I really hated that job.
Mhm. Well, Kamon, when you started, the conference up that it is now the Bee Expo, and I remember just having a few different designs, and you was doing this conference, and I sent you a message, and
I
hey,
said,
I've got these.
don't come, don't come. We don't want you. And
Yeah,
you showed up anyways, and we felt bad because it was cold.
yeah, and I was like, I'm going to try to bring these down. I just want people to see how you can keep bees in a horizontal hive, and and you talked to me for over an hour on the phone, and you was so excited about this conference, and you was kind of telling me your vision of where you was headed with it, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. And here he's talking to me about this, and it's really giving me it's inspiring me, right? And he came down, and we met the rooster, and how that goes. It was
Yeah,
rough.
yeah. I understand what the dirt part about it is too.
But the
I
conference was great. There was just something there with that first conference.
mhm.
So what clicked with you to invent the perfect? I think it's the perfect bee conference, and I think everybody's trying to mimic what you're doing now. What clicked in your mind? You say, I think I can pull something off that's pretty cool.
Well, I didn't know that at the time. It was all theoretical, and I thought it was a, a tangible concept, but I've had other ideas that have fallen flat on their face. More ideas end up like that than not. So no one was surprised more than I was that it actually worked out. But my running theory was, first of all, I'd been to a lot of bee meetings around the country. I guess not a ton at that point, but I had been to enough of the ones in the nearby states, and talked to enough beekeepers to know they were pretty lackluster. And I'm like, this just blows my mind. I mean, beekeepers, we love seeing bee stuff. We like talking about bees. We like to just anything bee. We're all about that kind of stuff. And so it just blew my mind. I would go to these events, and it was boring. They were lackluster. Heck, people would want to leave extra early. Some didn't even stay the second day. And I'm like, surely we can do better than this. And I'd been to some ag conferences because I used to do a lot of agriculture, and they aren't perfect either, but there was definitely more pizzazz and energy in there. I'm like, sure, we can do a little bit better than that. And ultimately, whenever anything is under my control, I want to do really well with it. That's why I was raised. And also, I think it says a lot about Laurel and I. If we do a good job, and if we don't do a good job, then I think like that also says a lot about us too. And so, and people's time is important. My time's important. Your time's important. people's money is very important. And so we definitely didn't want that weighing on us, that we were wasting people's time and energy. So we tried to really think outside the box. And one thing that people often forget with our early conferences, they were very simple. And you know that. It was one room, 220 people, including you, like 5 vendors. And, so it was super small, very humble beginnings. And, the second year, it grew a little bit more, but it was still a very simple conference. It wasn't we didn't have near the speakers and speaking rooms, but we had to really think about the budget and stuff. We're not like state conferences or big organizations. We've never received grants or funding, which I think is kind of good in a way, because it really forces us to be excellent, because if not, we'll go out of business and we don't get the government cheese that keeps propping us up, even if we suck. So pardon my French, but we definitely just wanted to do something that was helpful at the end of the day. And I think I think it's something that we don't see a lot in our country anymore, or beekeeping, because we have too many organizations that are just they've gotten too complacent, and there's not enough competition. So there are other conferences that have tried to mimic us, and to a degree, and and some of them are doing their own thing. And so I don't want to be mean. We definitely didn't figure out how to do a conference, but that's good. That's what we should be seeing. We should be seeing it, and not all of them are going to be the Bee Expo. Maybe never will be. I don't know, but obviously they can do better than most of their state conferences can do. And if people are going to need to be educated like they do, and if people are going to spend their money like they will, they ought to get a good return on their investment. And if a privatized conference is going to give that to them, then the old way of doing things needs to go, and a new type of event needs to arise. And so yeah, that's pretty much. I saw our state conference here in Tennessee, and I saw how bad it was, and I just said, you know what? Surely to goodness we can do better than that. So I really need to thank the Tennessee Beekeepers Association for inspiring me. I'm like, I know I can't do this bad.
And the YouTubers, I think, really helped you out. It felt like that word of mouth got out, and it just kind of exploded, and everybody wanted to come see, you and Randy and people we've seen on YouTube for so long. And it was just like, wow, I want to go to this conference. I want to meet somebody I've talked on the chat. That's what's really cool. I'm going to meet these people on the chat, and we're going to have a good time. And that really seemed to cause your conference to really explode. Besides getting good education, and you putting all the vendors there, and giving vendors like myself a chance. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for Kamon giving me just a chance to go to a conference and be part of it, and show our products. That's special. So.
Well, thank you for saying that. And we believed then, and we believe now that if we can help other people be successful, one, they'll want to come back, but two, it's going to help the industry out as a whole. If you've obviously, and many other people who were there have gone and done more and more. And we see what, Greg, and eventually teaming up with the rest of the guys with the stream team, that's been really fun and beneficial for a lot of people. And so you see that, and, what you guys are doing, and so many other stories, that is really important. I can't be everywhere, and there's a lot of things that I can't do because I just don't have the knowledge or the skills. So, being able to allow other people to come into our event and be able to do what they do best, and then showcase it and meet people that are on the same frequency, really, I think, helps encourage all of us in our own ways that we need it, and form our own little groups. And it's not that we all can't get along, but throughout the year, we're not only at the Bee Expo a few days out of the year, but the rest of the year we can be chatting on these groups, or we maybe meet up locally, or heck, some of us text and call each other. And that's important. Our industry is pretty spread out, and I think we need that camaraderie and that, especially the new beekeepers, they need the mentorship and the encouragement to stay the course and not get too discouraged when they lose their bees. And we brought Randy McCaffrey and Bob Benny. We had Kent Williams there the first year as well. So that was my 3 speakers, and then I spoke, and that was it. And it was I was very thankful that all of those guys showed up. Randy McCaffrey least of all, but you have to, when you're a new conference, you just kind of have to work with whoever you can get to show up. And Randy, he's like, yeah, I got nothing going on. I'm like, man, I was hoping he'd say he was busy this week. But, I had chatted with Randy a little bit on the phone right beforehand, and we've ended up becoming good buddies, and we've had a lot of fun memories together, and of course Bob as well. And it was a fun contrast, and I think one of the things that we've done well at the Bee Expo is have a good contrast where it's not all researchers. We definitely have gotten a little bit more of that because there are some people that really want that. But we have guys that are more commercial beekeepers like Bob, and we have guys that are like Randy who also are. I hope that poor guy doesn't hear you chopping him up. I don't even know who you're talking about, Chris. We were actually chopping you up prior to this thing started.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
Yeah, we won't talk about that. And so, Randy brought a whole different, crowd of people, and it was really fascinating to see all the people that showed up that were really big fans of Randy. And it was really eye-opening for Bob, Randy, and myself, because even though we did have subscribers on YouTube, we had never met that many people that followed us in person before. And it really clicked in our minds like, okay, this is, these people are actually really serious about being more involved with us in other ways than just watching our videos. And so it blew Bob's mind, and he even apologized to me about it, which just shows you the kind of guy that he is. Because I told him it would help his storefront out, and he called me. He's like, Kamon, it's like tripled our foot traffic in the store. You told me it would increase, and frankly, I thought you were pulling my leg. I didn't believe you. And so, and he just called me up out of the blue to say that. So that was really nice of him, ridiculously nice. And then Randy, of course, was surprised at how much merch that he sold. It's too property of Kamon. That's terrible. We branded him. It's not property. But then for me, it was really eye-opening. Like, wow, people really enjoyed this, and we learned a lot. We made several mistakes, and that's one thing I got to say. Thank you to all the first, not only vendors, but the first people that came to our first conference and any of our conferences, but especially that first group that gave us a shot. We were nobodies. For every person that said, yeah, we'll come, we had, especially vendors, we had 4 that said not a chance. So, and even the second and third year, occasionally someone tells us no now, but the percentages have changed quite a bit.
I'd say so.
They have a little bit. And so thanks to those people, and then they went and told all their friends. And so the next year we quadrupled in size to 800. But where I want to say the biggest thank you is everybody who's really paid attention. We try to, cover it up. It's part of the illusion as nobody knows the chaos that's actually happening. And we're all like, Kamon, you disappoint me yet again. And I'm crying behind the scenes, behind the pipe and drape where nobody can see me. And we somehow make it through another year. Ultimately, at the end of it, if people are happy, that's great. But there a lot of times we're late or we make a mistake. So people have been very generous too. And so with their patience with us, and it's yielded the biggest beekeeping event in North America and what is probably the second largest in the world as far as a trade show style. Definitely in North America anyhow. So that being said, we're still learning. Now that Chris is on board, it is fixing to be way better than it's ever been before. Right. And they're just, obviously, it's very different than running a 200-person conference. We actually went back to Lebanon, Ricky. Laurel wanted to go to like a little lizard expo they had over there.
Right.
And they had some interesting lizards if you're into that thing. Personally, I like things that have wings and 6 legs and make honey, but whatever.
Yeah.
So we went there and we looked at the building that we had the first conference in. I could not believe that we fit into that room. But I remember when we first went in there, how big everything was, and the thought that we actually maybe could fill up that whole Lebanon place one day. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
man, maybe one day we can get that big. We couldn't fit half the conference in there if we tried.
No.
And so it's just I don't know. You just kind of just somehow you go from point A to point D or wherever we're at this point, and you just kind of look back and like, how in the world have we gotten here?
Yep.
We just tried our best and kind of let God take care of the rest, and
Yep.
and let Chris help out every now and then. And now with Chris though and all these people, we want to still make it personal, and it's hard at this scale. So we got a couple different ideas. Chris is probably freaking out that I'm going to overpromise. Like, yeah, my phone just dinged.
Uh-oh.
But we are looking to extend the conference a little bit longer, without extending, like do all day Thursday, all day Friday and Saturday for not like a major increase. If there is an increase, it's going to be because we'll have more videos than ever before. We're looking to hopefully at some point, maybe this year, have the American Beekeeping Research Conference join us. And it's all the PhDs and bee labs and stuff, and it's basically where they share their research for that year, and so all the cutting edge research. So we're looking at ways to integrate them into this and have all of those recordings and stuff, and maybe that'll happen. We're definitely looking to expand workshops and opportunities to network more, and there's just been a lot of things we couldn't do. So with Chris on board, we definitely plan to add some things, but nothing that's going to affect the culture. That's something that we're really trying to, if anything, get more of. We definitely don't want to lose that. So, okay.
Yeah.
I'll shut up.
And I think the second year, if I'm not mistaken, even COVID had hit, and you still had a pretty good turnout your second year when COVID had hit. And, I'm going to put JW on the spot here. And JW, which conference did you come to? What was your first conference?
The second one.
The second one.
The second
Yeah.
one, I didn't come to go the first year.
Yeah. Well,
Actually, one of my friends, Douglas Ridge Bees, got me to come. He was coming down there, and I helped him haul some stuff the second, third year. In the 2 years that I've been to both ones, I went to one at Sevierville and two at Nobby or at Louisville.
yeah, it's
I'll tell you, when you find out you're successful or totally successful or not,
Yeah.
Kamon, when you fill that entire expo center.
Oh gosh.
And then
My wife doesn't want that. She's just like, no, please, no.
You bust nothing, buddy.
Yeah.
So
well,
speaking of filling that up, Kamon, where are you headed with this? Tell me what great thing that's in your mind right now. What's your dream? Where do you want the expo to become? I mean, how big do you want it to get? What are you shooting for?
Yeah, there's really not a number. If it never adds. Oh, hey, Sawmill Charlie, how you doing?
Hey, Kamon.
So, it's really not about the number, Ricky. It's not. I don't have in my mind, let's go for 10,000. I don't have even 5,000 in my mind. If there's people that want to come and it goes to that, we'll figure out a way to grow into that and make it work. But ultimately, if it, think before you speak, Kate. That's Jeremy is the guy that handles our trade show. And so he walks like 45 miles every expo. He's like 400 pounds before we start, and then he's like a beanpole by the time it's over.
Yeah.
Just wears them down. But all jokes aside, there's really not a number. The quality is important to me. The bee industry is important to me. And at one point, we're gonna top out. I don't know what that number is, and we can get real creative. And and probably find a way to get it up to 4,000 or 5,000 if we really, really want to. But it's really more about the culture that we have. And if we have to do things that are going to defy that, we're not interested. We're just not interested. This is the place for the beekeepers to hang out, the bee community to get together and talk about new products that they'd like to see with the companies, feedback on products that they have seen from the companies, a chance for all of us to be able to hang out with each other and fellowship and also learn some new things about our bees and stock up on some bee gear. So, that's the most important thing to me. And even if it shrank back down to where, for whatever reason, if the industry is like, what, we're tired of conferencing, we want to, cut it back to 2,000, we're still going to run it as best we can. So it's really not a numbers thing to me. It's about, hey, can we add better value here? Can we have a better trade show? Can we have better education? Can we have more workshops? People really like that this year. So somehow we've got to figure out the logistics of getting hundreds of people through the workshop, because the demand is there for that. We would be a fool not to figure it out. It's a nightmare trying to figure it out. That sounds like I'm going to be purchasing another $5,000 to $6,000 of microscopes, apparently, which, is fine. But then you add on, okay, this person, and then the hotels for them, and then their flights, and then this, and that's okay. We just have to figure out all the details, and you have to have someone that sets it up and takes it down and make sure it gets packed away carefully and doesn't get chucked in there like Ultra Bee on top of my microscopes. Thank you, guys. So nothing like Ultra Bee powder all in the microscope components. All jokes aside, so anything that'll add value, and we're looking at also seeing if we can add just some fun stuff to it as well. I've wanted to do this for years. We haven't had the time, but I'd like to have a cornhole regulation set of boards, but it actually is a hexagon bag that you throw. It's the same weight, same material, and actually set up a competition that goes to the youth program or some type of really beneficial program. And you have teams that set up, and there's like a, maybe a $50 buy-in or whatever. And there's, a trophy and yada, yada, yada. And all the everything that's raised goes to getting more kids in the building and getting them stuff and whatever. We're really focused on the future of beekeeping, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And so that makes me think we've got to get more kids involved. The Next Gen program is great. It's very focused on a handful, and it's a premium trip where they get reimbursement on hotels. They get cool gear. They get a little bit of one-on-one time with some of the guys like Bob and whatever, Blake. But that's only like 40 kids. So can we get? And we're very heavily looking into FFA, 4-H. It's a little bit of a different crowd. So we're trying to figure out what those logistics mean. Is it just a Saturday that they come, or is it just a Friday? And, can we get 400 of them in there that are good kids from agriculture that we seduce to the dark side of beekeeping? And their parents are like, no, you're supposed to be a 4th generation cattle farmer.
I think that the programs of, like, I'll say skill type programs, your science, microscopic type programs, and let's say programs like, learning how to graft or learning how, learning how to do a complete, set up a cell builder and learning how to make your own queens to be self-sustainable. I think that's an add-on that will propel the expo that other folks really don't do, or other organizations don't put that on. And I think that speaker wise, you can only have so many speakers out there, and you kind of run out of topics to talk about to a certain extent. And unless there's, something, like what's happening now in the commercial side, but it's like like Ricky's, every night of the week, there's a talk show Mine's on Friday nights. But this core group of family of beekeepers that are in the chats every night of the week. I hosted a No Life Beekeepers party, and Ricky started it the first year. Then he wasn't able to get there this year, and then I promoted it along with the help with Tom and Melissa. We had 60 some people from the chat. Now we're looking at trying to find a room that's going to hold 150 people for everybody to show up, and then plus have some food. And that is what is coming out of the Bee Expo, is all these offshoots of beekeeper community, and where we, for myself, I tell people, I know beekeepers from the East Coast to the West Coast, from Louisiana, all the way up through Canada, and all the commercial guys that hang out on my channel. And it's like, this is the gathering, as we would say, where everybody comes once a year to be
That
able
doesn't
to
sound ominous at all, the gathering.
well, I don't know.
It sounds like a horror film waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Bunch of beekeepers together. Oh my gosh, this will be crazy.
Yeah, but it's kind of like the rendezvous, with the mountain men and type of thing, and where we all get together. And that's really like this year, we got together the night before, and everybody really got to meet everybody in person, a lot of times for the first time. And it was, where we only had to focus on, meeting each other and not trying to find everybody at the conference. And it was one of the enjoyable parts, addition to the conference and everything.
I agree.
And it just, and then you get to, like you say, you get to see the vendors. And then Kamon, you put on like your pollen patty deal, which, great savings there, big savings. And you also get savings from the vendors. And, you save on the shipping, you save on taxes if you pre-order, and on and on and on and on. And it's just positive all the way around when it comes to, for the beekeepers and for the conference and everything.
Yeah. So Steve is one of the guys that helps us out a lot. And, a lot of these guys, maybe they see them, but they don't know what they're doing. I think we might get them like fluorescent pink shirts next year, because I know how much that brings out Steve's eyes. But these guys, unfortunately, they have to deal with some of the worst stuff of the event, because most of the people are awesome. And that's why we do this event. We think about the 98% of the people, but then there's a few of them we have to physically remove, and then there's some people that are just stupid. And they have to be educated, and big. That's why I get guys like Steve and Jake Osborne and these big guys, and Ryan Arnold, who are like 6'4" and 6'6" and look pretty rough and tough, and are. I know I could take Jake Osborne. He's just a big teddy bear. I don't care if he's 3 times my size. I can take him. So, but yes, there a lot of the side stuff can be the most fun, and so we have a lot of folks who look at our conference from other conference standpoints and go, hey, this is how we run our conference to make it easier here and this here. I'm like, we don't do that, because it really cuts down on the creative freedoms of our conference. And I prefer letting people be a lot more creative and free to do their own stuff. If we really wanted to milk out another ton of money out of this thing, we could, for a while, I suppose. But I think you start going that way, and then it takes the wind out of the sails of the vendors, and that there's a trickle down effect to how much people end up paying for product. And then also there's a trickle down effect of, regulations. It just takes the fun out of it. And I remember going to a homeschool conference, and we had to be at a certain place at a certain time. I did not go there to listen to some old guy talk about stuff I don't care about. Sorry, Bob's not that old guy. He's a different old guy. But I don't. This guy was supposedly some homeschool guru, and I'm sure he was. I just didn't care. And so I knew that my buddies flew in from Oregon, and I had some buddies from Indiana, and a few other states that we had been chatting about homeschool stuff, and some of them were farmers, and I still, they helped me at the conference. They're good guys, and we're still friends. I was there to hang out with those guys and have fun with those guys. And so at the Bee Expo, we realize that's how it works. And the more times you come, the more friends that you accrue typically.
That's
and
right.
so you want to have that time to be able to hang out. And so it's really cool to see all these shindigs happening after hours or adjacent to our conference. And I think it's awesome. My only issues with them is I can't go to all of them. I wish I could. I wanted to be at the Hides for Heroes thing. There's always some type of crisis I've got to deal with. And then if there's not, I'm asleep. So that's kind of how that works. But we love also seeing after the conference is over, other people who are going and doing their own thing throughout the year, because ultimately the bee community benefits from that. And I will say that I think our conference works so good in part because we have such great staff, and those staff are, many of them, people who have worked with bee clubs or even state organizations that have let them down because of all the stupidity of the politics, even within a bee club. And so these people who have volunteered in the past and really want to do something beneficial and help, they just get totally wore out with all the politics. We don't do that. We just do whatever Laurel tells us to do, and everything just flows from there. And so, and they're able to come in and be creative. A lot of our great ideas have been from Chris or Andrea Porter. Andrea used to, run some conferences and has run several other things as well. And she's been invaluable to us. She wasn't able to help us at the first Bee Expo. She there physically. We really missed her. She was able to help us again this year, which is awesome. Of course, we have a lot of guys who are back there on the docks and stuff that are helping us out. And Jake Osborne, who's very involved, organized the entire all the vendor storage. He had that all mapped out and was contacting the vendors. And so, man, we are just very blessed to have all these good people in the bee industry. And the fact that these other conferences are looking at this talent that's freely given, and they let their ego get in the way of that, and they run these people off, is just the height of stupidity, I think. But okay, off of my soapbox. Andrea is the bomb, but the only issue I have with Andrea, she's perfect in almost every way. There's nobody more allergic to photography than Andrea. We tried so hard to get pictures of her in our group photo, and she finally stuck her head out. I'm like, yes, take the picture. And in that split second, she ducked behind somebody, and you can't even see a hair on her head. And she hates the cameras. But if that's what we have to deal with, that's what we have to deal with.
Yeah, and Robbie's got a question for there. And if you guys in the chat want to ask Kamon a question before he snags and gets off of here, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. But I'll say I didn't get to go, and Rob, that's you're just kind of smearing it in my face right now. But
yeah, that's what Rob does. He's a smear. Well, Rob's business is another example of innovation in the vaporizer technology. Of course, we have Thorn Manufacturing too. Hilco is also another young company. Premier's a young company, and there's other good companies, and some of them are quite old. I bought several things from Miller Bee Supply this year. I bought 4 pallets from Premier. I bought some stuff from Cowan. I definitely buy oxalic acid and stuff from Rob, and I got more pollen traps from Apamay. I'm as bad as any beekeeper, guys. I really am. I just buy all this stuff. So there's a lot of older companies. There's a lot of new companies, but we're really putting pressure on a lot of these companies who aren't getting with it because they're losing market share every year. And it's really like they're calling me and asking for advice. It's that bad. And I don't know what to tell them. I don't know anything about running a business like that. But of course, I'll make something up because I can do that. Ultimately, I do give them, I think, decent advice, but it's not what they want to hear because they want everyone wants an easy solution to everything, even the big boys. The reality of it is people don't care how much, they just want to know how much you care. And then ultimately, what are you doing for me lately? And, you know, so if you're not creating any nice products, if your service isn't that hot and somebody else is doing better than you in these categories, you're going to lose market share. It's pretty basic stuff. Every company needs to have at least 3 products that are just awesome. I mean, the rest of the stuff can just be average. A lot of companies sell very similar products, frames and foundation. Here's a hive tool. Here's this. But you need to have at least 3 products, I think, if you're a company that sells a lot of stuff that are just, they set you apart from everybody else. And you kind of have to have them almost because they're so good. And then by default, people will then buy your other stuff because they're fans. Everyone needs to be in the business of creating fans, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're running a big bee supply company. If you're not creating fans, you are not doing this right, because that's the best advertising that you can get, is people going to their bee clubs and like, man, this is my favorite bee suit. These are this is my favorite hive tool. You know, this is, you know, Bob Benny's my favorite YouTuber. And that is the best advertising. Any company that's not trying to create fans and create some products for fans is really just not doing it right. So
and the other part of that is the service.
Yeah.
You hear that with Hilco all the time. It's impeccable service.
yeah,
and
it's definitely not John's looks.
That's why you see business grow, because they're loyal, because they know that you're going to stand behind their product, and if there's an issue, they're going to get it fixed.
And there's a face that you can relate to it. It's not that corporate feeling, because it's not a corporation. When you buy from Hilco, you feel like you're supporting John because you are, and you also feel like John cares. And that's the cool thing about the expo. And I've actually had some vendors. We send out a vendor survey, and it's anonymous, so I don't know who this is. If you're watching this, sorry if this embarrasses you, but only you will know that was you. I have no clue who this is. But every year we have a company complain about the Hilco problem. Kamon, what are we going to do about the Hilco problem? They're too big. It's like it's turning into the Hilco trade show. And I'm like, it's called free market capitalism. What do you want me to do? You know, if we crank down on John, he's not going to create the new products. You know, I told John, and I think other people did too, a few years ago, we needed a smaller uncapper that was more affordable. There was a gap there that was not being filled. And so he didn't just make one, he's making 2 different uncapping styles for beekeepers that are in a more fair price range. Obviously, he has several other new products as well. And so, you know, and I'm not twisting John's arm like I could. You know, they're a very successful company, and, you know, John looks at the expo as an opportunity. And it blows my mind that some of the other big companies, like if you're a small company, you have 2 products, of course, you're not going to get 30 booth spaces. That makes sense. But the other big companies, you know, they're playing checkers and John's playing chess is what's going on right now. And John knows that if he invests into the conference, even though he's much smaller than some of the big guys, he's perceived by a lot of people as way bigger than he actually is. And he's growing into that role. So it's just a matter of time, I think. But yeah, we have companies that complain about that. Like, we need to regulate this. And, you know, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. I think a lot of people confuse capitalism like we have in the United States, where there's a lot of monopolies. It's supposedly looks like capitalism, but true free market capitalism means Sawmill Charlie could start a conference tomorrow and take my legs out from under me because he's just doing a better job than I am. And that's what America was built on, was the freedom to be able to go out and do that stuff. And we need to get back to that. We can't have regulations basically holding new and small companies back to where they can't grow and compete with PayPal. So we don't have to get messed up by then. Isn't that right, Laurel? PayPal, by the way, guys, if you run a conference, there's not a whole lot of companies that you can work with, but all of these companies, the few that will go through, like Ticket Tailor that we use, if you sell so many tickets or anything of a certain amount, they will hold 50% of your money for 6 months.
Yep.
And so, I mean, it's crazy because it's been really hard to pay all of our bills because the speakers need to be paid, all the hotels need to be paid, and they're still holding our money. And obviously, we need to pay ourselves to be able to keep the electricity bill from bouncing and all that kind of stuff. And and these companies, what I want this more than anything else is someone to come out and just take them to the woodshed. That's what I want for Christmas, guys. If anyone who's into that, someone create, I will give them 3% like I just give PayPal. Take my money, just don't hold my money. That's my money.
They did that. They did that to us when we first started. Did the same thing. It's like, I'm a small business. I'm just getting started. I can't wait that long. We actually had to go out and get a loan, and and it hurt. It hurt so bad. So.
Well, and it's, what they're doing is like right now, and I've got some guys that are, investors and they know how to do different elite money marketing accounts. And you can just take money like that and stick it in one of these accounts and you make 4.4% return. So think about that. They're doing that to you, Ricky. They're doing that to me and people all across the world.
Yep.
They could have hundreds of millions of dollars a year that they're holding for a handful of months, and they're making 4% on that. And I think that they're using that to their advantage. And boy, they're hurting a lot of people and making it very inconvenient. So anyone who ever finds a company that won't do that, they are going to get all of the Bee Expo's money funneled through there every year. Boy, that drives me nuts. Boy, I get on a tangent. I apologize. I'm really passionate about PayPal. I hate their stinking guts.
I will say the thing about John Hillco's. Every time I go to a conference, he takes all my profits away, Kamon. That's my biggest beef because he says, "Hey, look at this deal I got here, Rick." And it's like, yeah, I need that, so I'll take it, And he just takes all my money. So
yeah, John's good about doing that. Obviously his service is good because he's so ugly it can't be anything else. John, I was texting him today. I'm going to be stopping by Hillco. Here in about 15 days. So I'm going through, and so it's really neat to see their growth, and I think it's really impressive what they've been able to do in 5 years and change. I think it's a nice little message to other people that, hey, there's a lot of work to be done. There's still opportunity in the beekeeping community. Go after it and provide a service, and come to the Bee Expo.
I've heard rumors they're going to change it from Monarch to Hillmonk.
What?
He just about owns the whole town now.
Oh yeah, he about owns the whole town. Well, can you call that a town though?
Sure, it's a town.
Sure, it's a town. I mean, it's like one of those Western movies where it's like there's like the hotel and there's maybe a livery stable, and that's about it. That's Monarch, except Hillco is just about the entire town.
So was I mistaken? Somebody said Matt Booth won a free card from Hillco. Is that right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think it was Matthew. There was some, John, does some of these giveaways and stuff. It's hard for me to keep track. John's crazier than I am, and so it's really hard to keep up with him. And this is turning into, I guess, a shameless plug for Hillco. John's not perfect, let me tell you. But neither am I, and he's a good friend. We're a very similar age, and since we're both building businesses, it's there's a lot of similarities that we deal with, and moments that we kind of share with
we've got several vendors that do a pretty good job, in my opinion. Not just John does an excellent job, but so does there's Rob at Robbie's, and I thought.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about PayPal, Kamon. Can't you just get your own credit card account where everybody just plugs it in and goes right directly to your account without? I mean, no, you still pay her for 3% or something like that, or sure. I don't know about Square, whether Square would do any good for you or not.
Well, see, Square does it as well.
Charlie.
And well, so there's the problem of it is like we need the ticketing system that we have to be able to, of course, keep track of everybody and stuff like that. And a lot of these ticketing companies, they only give you like 3 options, and it's usually the same 3 companies. And so that's where we run into the issues. And we basically play musical chairs. It's like 2 months in, PayPal's starting to hold our money. Then we jump over to Square for a little bit. And then it usually takes them about a month to figure out. and then we jump over to another one, and then eventually PayPal maybe loosens up, because we'll spend, like Laurel probably spends 7 working days a year just talking to these people and trying to get on the phone with somebody. It's the worst type of work.
Oh yeah.
And so every now and then she'll find somebody that has a soul, and they'll loosen up the money, and then we'll switch back to PayPal, and those guys probably get fired for being a nice person, and then they lock our money down 2 months later again. And it's not like we're not established either. It's like we've been doing this for a while. We have a tax history. We're American citizens. They have all of our information. We're not laundering money. The government does that. We don't know how to do that. You don't want to go back to paper checks, Kamon. Laura would die. She I don't know. She might get rid of me. That we used to do all paper checks and give that option the first couple of years. We spent days doing that, and of course, it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. But that's where we learned so much, because it's like, 10 checks, that's not so bad. But then it's 600 checks, and of course, the mail system out of 600 checks loses 5. They end up in Canada or who knows where else, and then we a lot of times never get them, or they come 2 months later and they're all beat up and stuff, and we have to contact people, and it can be difficult. And what we found, very interestingly enough, there is a lot of juniors out there, a ton of juniors, and it makes it terribly confusing for us. So any of you people who are naming your children, do the Bee Expo a favor. If you're thinking they're going to come in the future, do not name your child after your husband. He's not that awesome. Don't do it. It makes it so hard on us, because it's confusing on all the paperwork. And then we have so many people, and I'm saying all this kind of half jokingly, but it does make it difficult on us, very confusing. Even with new quarters, it's like everyone is going by their middle name or a nickname or something like that. And good for you. We just got to be able to make sure that this person who's actually named Melanie is getting her nuke. But we don't know that, because she goes by a nickname, and that's what she put on the paperwork. But her email is totally different. It's so confusing. It's all right. It's just part of business. And but you invite me on this thing, and it's an outlet to complain. I don't do this on my own live chat that much, because I don't want to be a negative Nancy on my own live chat. I want it to be a positive, beneficial thing. But I don't really care that much about your channel, Rick.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Nobody watches my channel. We're okay.
That's absolutely terrible.
Well, it does give everybody kind of an insight of what the logistics and all the work behind the scenes you have to go
absolutely.
through. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know either. And it's just one of those things, and you can't know. It's kind of like when you're a teenager and your parents are trying to get you to appreciate why we turn off the lights in the house, why we take care of stuff, why we put things back, and you just don't you can't appreciate it, really. You might obey, but you don't appreciate and understand. Once you get the experience of having your own car and having to work for that car for years, it's a totally different perspective. This truck that I stole, it took me so many years to get to that point where I could have that nice tool. And so, and then after I got it, I had to go through a lawsuit. And so, we sued them, but whatever. It was still a pain in the butt. I appreciate that truck quite a bit. And I just spent about 5 hours one way and back going to Bob's and getting some 4-way pallets. And I'm getting a forklift now. And so we're kind of entering a different stage in our beekeeping. And so I'm really excited about that. But I think if it wasn't for all the years of going without a nicer truck and not having air conditioning, and also I'm having to hand unload and load colonies, I'm going to really appreciate and take care of this stuff. And so for the conference, there was a lot of things that I remember thinking about events. I'm like, why don't they do that? It can't be that hard. And then you get on the back end of one, you're like, holy smokes. Okay. That's why. So it's all right. And ultimately it's our burden. People are supposed to come to the conference and have a good time. So I really try to when I want to yell and scream about certain things, I'm just like, this is going to be the best year ever, everybody. And then when I get up on stage and I'm welcoming everybody in, I'm frazzled out of my mind. And I get there on stage, I'm like, welcome to the North American Honeybee Expo 2025. We're so excited to have you. Not. And
Well, that's my job. You promised me that job.
oh, I promise you. Well, JW, you know, next year, there's always next year.
My time's limited, you know.
Well, I know it. If I keep talking like this, my time's fixing to be very limited too. Laurel's giving me the side eye a few times tonight already. So we're on our second side eye. I've never seen a third before, and I may never. So
I'll tell you, I suppose you probably consider this thing seriously from a financial standpoint with your setups on your tickets. Have you ever talked to your local bankers or a good big, maybe they're in Nashville, big commercial bank operation? I would suggest that you could you could be your own, set up an account and get you a line of credit and be your own financier. You can always do better not playing the other man's game.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that we need to take the time to do. And honestly, it's partially my fault because while I should be probably focused on the expo, more on details like that, I'm getting a forklift and taking all of my bees to Wisconsin this year. But I really want to be I've always wanted to be a beekeeper. The conference is kind of a side gig that's kind of taken over my main gig. But you're right. I'm going to look into that. Chris and I were talking about a guy that I've worked with in the past, and he has lightly that actually has worked with companies to do those kind of things, and also inquire to large companies like Ford or Kellogg's or just any big company and get sponsorships and stuff like that. And we would like to be able to get those because I think there's a lot of things that we could do that we can't do. Whether it's the more kid program, whether it's a little bit more pizzazz. I don't know whether it's being able to, fly Bob Binion in a private jet or something like that. I don't know. Air Force Bob or something like that. That's what we'll call it. But he's so much fun, and he's been with us for 5 years, and he's like, we're planning out the booth. We're thinking what we can do better. I wasn't quite as happy with it this year. I'm like, that's what you say every year, Bob. Here he goes over promising folks. Yeah, that's going to be the hot news is Bob's getting his own private jet. You heard it here first on Ricky's channel. Bob's going to be like, hey, Kamon, where's my jet?
Where's my jet?
So all jokes aside, there is a lot of things that we need to do with that, but the YouTube channel built this, and it's not that we have to produce 3 videos a week like we used to do when we started the channel. But we do want to get back to having some better content. We're working with a lot of companies behind the scenes. We have for multiple years, and we want to continue to do that. There's a lot of companies that really need a leg up. And we'll lose them if we don't help them out because starting any business, it's hard to make that jump. You may have a great product, but if nobody knows and you have no marketing, and that's how a lot of businesses start. I was fortunate that the YouTube channel worked for me. So I was able to start my conference semi easily. Like the marketing was there. It still was a lot of learning to run a conference, but I didn't have to figure out marketing too, which is a big blessing. I just leveraged Randy McCaffrey. The guy never saw it coming. And I said, let's bring in that guy. Let's bring in Bob. Thankfully I had a YouTube channel, and then thankfully we were able to grow upon that. And we saw a lot of new things come about, this channel and the stream team and many other things gained and then Sawmill Charlie. And then of course you guys have I always forget it, the No Life Beekeepers, which I love. That needs to be a t-shirt if it isn't already. And so that is just taken on and gone, and there's been so many things crop up. So it's just really cool. Really cool. It's really changed a lot of stuff on the old school way of doing things. And I like old stuff. I really do. I'm way into history. I like beekeeping because it's smokers and hive tools. But we've just gotten not old in the like the Bob Benny way, which is like wise and useful and smart. We've gotten old in the way of like senile as an industry and not useful and not intelligent and a little lazy. I think too many people bought into the idea that this industry was it was what it was and nothing could be done about it. All of those groups I just mentioned have proved otherwise. There's plenty of opportunity. The Bee Expo and my YouTube channel, I want to get back to helping companies. And we have possibly tropical laps on the horizon. We don't know. I mean, it's going to happen eventually one day. Could be 50 years, could be 5 months. We don't know. And so it's something that a lot of my friends and these researchers are working on. That's the goal of the expo, is to literally pull the entire industry into it. We had more commercial beekeepers than ever this year. We want more of that. We want more researchers involved, bee labs. We're going to be offering them free booth spaces this year for any bee lab or university that wants a booth space. We want these people involved because they have their place in the industry and it's important. Obviously, I don't know about you guys, I get a little bit glossy-eyed whenever I start hearing about all these graphs and charts popping up on the screen. I'm just your average beekeeper. And so I try. I do try when I need to. But I want those groups to be brought in. I want us all be able to communicate and work with one another. So as we have these problems on the horizon, we're addressing them as efficiently as possible. Tropical laps is going to be a big problem. I hope that we have 5 to 10 years. I think if we have 10 years, we are going to handle it fairly well. There's a lot of good things going, but it takes time. It takes research. It takes product development. And a lot of these companies who are doing mite treatments do not feel pressure at all. And this is a problem. And we're going to fix that over the next couple of years. We're doing some stuff with some companies behind the scenes. We're not even getting a cut of the money. We just kind of see the writing on the wall. And we need better mite treatments. We need better formic deliveries. Formic's a good product. It just needs to be regulated better. Thymol can be better than what we have it. Oxalic acid, just see how much technology and innovation we've had in the oxalic acid realm in the last handful of years. That's what we need to be seeing in the other groups as well. But when you only have one company providing it and they're selling it because there's no competition in that realm, that's a problem. The innovation is critical. So I want to see that. Obviously, we're also talking with and working with guys like Corey Stevens. We have his nukes. I'm working with other guys not heavily, but I'm communicating frequently with Dr. Frank Rinkovich out of the Bee Lab there at the USDA, and talking to Randy Oliver with his mite resistant bees, his Golden West line. Bob is doing the same, and so are many others. And so we need this combination approach of all of it. Yeah, formic could be so much better. It's used a lot in Europe and other places, and even commercial beekeepers here in the United States use it quite a bit, but a lot of them make their own because it's cheaper, and honestly, it works better. Same with thymol. A lot of the commercial guys make their own thymol. It works better, and it kills more mites. It's easier on the bees, and it's cheaper. But we need better options for your average beekeeper who doesn't want to be a chemist in their kitchen. And so it's up to all of us to collectively put our energy into these places. So that's kind of the Bee Expo has a lot of ulterior motives behind the scenes to be able to facilitate conversation, innovation, and when that product is ready, be able to get it off at a fast speed very quickly so that it can be successful. And that's do we know for a fact OA is not effective for trophy? I haven't heard anything in regards to yay or nay. I would imagine it is if I had to guess. However, they are faster and they don't stay out of the cell as long as Varroa And so if it's a oxalic acid vapor, it's just going to be a very short snapshot, just like with Varroa, but maybe even less so. And then the oxalic acid extended release may work less good. But then again, we don't know. For all we know, their exoskeleton may be a lot more susceptible to it. And so, I mean, that would be awesome. And then we could put strips in or something, and it actually is quite devastating to them. We're going to have to get smarter. We already need to be getting smarter about things. I have several buddies who have a very different opinion about, and these aren't like guys with 5 hives. I'm not trying to pick anyone with 5 hives, but these are guys who are commercial beekeepers. And they're like, this whole bee die-off thing is a little overblown. I have buddies who are like, this is the worst thing since CCD. I've got some commercial guys who are like, this is overblown. It's a money grab. And so I'm in between trying to figure out what's what. And, Blake's a good friend of mine. He says that it is. So I'm apt to believe him. But I also have some other good friends as well. And I have several buddies who are running 2,000 colonies that don't use any amitraz at all. They're just using formic and thymol and oxalic acid, and they're not seeing the same losses. So it's really hard to figure out. There was a lot of, obviously, floods and hurricanes in the east that caused not only loss of bees, but also the complete loss of habitat. Nutrition is the number one line of defense for any type of immune-related problem. So obviously this probably is a broad issue, but I really think that we need to see more dialed in beekeeping from all the beekeepers at the top all the way down to the bottom. And that's something that I want to be able to do with my channel. And that's part of the reason why I'm taking it up to scale. One, I want to do it. Two, I think that one of these days I'd like to grow into becoming a Bob Benny level beekeeper. Bob's my hero, and I think he's a lot of our heroes. And one day I will never have Bob's personality. Let me say that. I think everyone assumes that. I've never had that, nor will I ever. There's not medication that can get me there. I wish, but I do want to be able to be as experienced in beekeeping as the king. And by the way, Sean, they had one of the stickers that you made of me at the conference, and the girls at the desk were like, "Hey, look at this, Cam, and we got this sticker. It's been all over everything. It's lost all of its sticky because we've had it on the laptop, we've had it over Bob's desk, we've had it over here, and this is all your fault, Sean." I mean, like, my cousin just texted me a picture of this. And I teased Bob and said, well, Sean, we're probably going to get him to do a Bob Benny one next year. And Bob's like, oh, you better not. So, Sean, the conversation never happened. But if Bob Benny stickers happen to be there, they are sanctioned by the North American Honeybee Expo. You have to edit this out, Ricky.
All right.
I'll get back to Bob. Yeah. I'll send them some new ones. Gee, Sean, thank you so much. Next time, if you're going to do a picture of my head, can it be a little bit more flattering? It's like, it's a terrible grimace. I'm glad everyone had fun with it, I suppose.
If you're wanting to know more about AAA labs, you need to get a hold of Dr. Sammy, yeah, he used to be here in Maryland, and I actually had him invited to my bee club about 3 months prior to him becoming getting his PhD and stuff. And what's nice about him is he can take any high in science topic and just bring it down to your level and talk about it and you completely understand it. And stuff.
We invited him in the past. It's really difficult since he spends so much time in Thailand and stuff. And he's obviously in high demand as well.
Yeah. When I got him in my club, I had to wait for him to get back from Thailand in order for him to come to the club and everything.
But I'm sure at some point in the future that will be on the agenda. And did drought cause poor nutrition for winter bee production and dwindling of colonies? I definitely is a factor. I mean, anytime, if you kept bees for any length of time, you pay attention, anytime you have a poor nutrition, spring flow or fall flow, it affects cluster size. And there's tons of research that shows how long that bees live based off of how much nutrition they received as developing larvae. So bees that are raised during a dearth period don't live as long as ones that are raised during the spring flow. They don't get fed as copiously. And so if you don't have a good fall flow, you can feed pollen patties and sugar, and that may be enough to get your bees through the winter, but you're going to end up maybe with 3 to 4 frame clusters where you may have had 7 to 8 frame clusters. So we definitely have seen that in the past. And so that's always a huge factor. And whenever you are sickly or less healthy, you are way more prone to maybe a new virus. And that could be part of this too. It could be just a different strain of deformed wing virus or something, because used to deformed wing, almost always you would have deformed wing. A lot of deformed wing virus now the bees do not express a deformed wing always. And then K wing, that used to be like a telltale sign, and now the bees don't express the K wing near as much. With the I'm going to say this wrong. Is it tracheal mites? Whatever it is, so things change, and we just don't know at this point. Hopefully, we'll find out. Usually, it's not clear cut. I'm kind of the opinion we need to overkill it every year. I don't want my bees to ever feel any nutritional stress, especially late into the year, like August, September, or October. And I definitely don't want the mites to ever get high. So we hit them quite often, but we were hitting the mites when they're low. So the mites never reach a major, they never affect our bees because they just never get high enough to do it. So if you have a double deep that's completely packed out with bees, that's about 40,000 bees. It's just like to the lid, to the bottom, 40,000 bees. If you have a 1% infestation, that's 400 mites. We've tested 50 colonies. That was part of our experimental yard that we had a few years ago, and we would like to be able to do more of that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm getting help. Thankfully, guys like Greg Rogers and others are doing that well, and I like that. But so 1% infestation is 400 mites. We usually see this sometime around July. These are beautiful colonies when they're at 1%. You can't even tell there's mites in there unless you just happen to open up the right cell. You won't see them. 400 mites on 40,000 bees. It's like a needle in a haystack almost. You're going to have to really hunt or do a mite wash for it. So, but then 21 days later, if these bees don't have any type of hygienic behavior at all and don't have any break, that's now 2%. So now there's 800 in there. The thing of it is, typically around in our area in late August and September, bees are getting ready for winter, but they're not trying to keep double deep strong of bees. The cluster ends up being probably a good cluster is about 7 to 8 frames of bees. That's a really prime cluster. So that's definitely not 40,000. The mite population's not going down with that. It's going up. And every 21 days after July, which is typically where we're around 1%, 800 mites, 1,600 mites, 3,200 mites, 6,400 mites. By the time we get to late September, especially into October, we're at 6,000 to 10,000 mites. And those bees crash every year. You can take a package of regular Italian bees in Tennessee, and they're going to crash almost every single time in October, just from a package. So imagine starting a colony that you overwintered, and it starts out the year with 100 mites or something like that in January. We start brooding in February. So we are starting to do a lot more soft treatments, but more frequently. And the oxalic acid, I actually just got 1,400 of those oxalic acid strips. I've actually got some Viroxan in here as well. We're testing out another product. Don't tell anybody I told you that. And you can get exemptions for these things, but it's oxalic acid cardboard strips. I really like them personally better than the sponges. What we'll do is we'll take a really high mite count colony, and we'll put sponges in between the double deeps, and you will see the mite drop, a daily mite drop, get raised up quite a bit with Randy Oliver sponges. But if you put these cardboard strips in, it's much higher. And what's nicer is the sponges, you have to scrape them up every time you want to manipulate those frames, and it's a pain in the rear end. I don't like it. And also, at the end of the year, you have to scrape them out, where With the cardboard ones, the bees chip them out, and you have very little to zero anything to remove once it's over with. So this year we are doubling up. We only tried this on a handful of counties last year, and we loved it. And those are my best bees I overwintered. So we're going to do April is when we super our colonies, oxalic acid strips in the brood nest. So even though the mites are very low in April, like almost not detectable, we're going to put those strips in there because the research has shown that a lot of times it just keeps it at that level. So if they're not detectable, if they can keep it not detectable for another 2 months or close to it, that means maybe in July we have maybe 0.25 if an infestation. But then when we take them up to Wisconsin, we're going to hit them with 1 pad of formic acid like I did last year with the ones in Wisconsin. So it actually curbs the swarming impulse when they get up there because they're pretty strong colonies. And I don't want them to swarm again. So we hit them with formic acid. And then we are going to split them a little bit. And then we're going to put those, after the formic's done, we're going to put 2 more oxalic acid strips in there. And I'm anxious to see what that does this year. But, I think that we need to be those oxalic acid strips aren't interfering with brood rearing. 1 formic acid pad at the right temperature on a strong colony interrupts it slightly, but not a lot. So we're trying to just be a lot smarter with our treatments, and we're starting. This last year was my best looking bees I've ever overwintered, and I know I can do better. So I think that as a community, we need to spend just a little bit more time dialing that little bit more in, and we'll have better bees. I'm really personally not too worried about this whole bee loss thing going on. I think it's more of a commercial thing if it's going to be anything. So I'm just like, and what are you going to do about it anyways? So we're just going forward full steam ahead and trying to get better.
Well, Kamon, I appreciate you coming on. I'll let you jump off right here. We usually do stop at 10 o'clock anyway. But I do want to say before you get off, you're an awesome guy, but we all know without Laurel, you wouldn't be where you are today. That's the same that goes for me as my wife. They're our backing, and we wouldn't be where we are. And we appreciate your wife. And, I know she's probably taking care of the kids and everything right now, but when you get off, tell her we appreciate her, and she's awesome, and for her to give you to us to give good bee information. So we do appreciate her. We appreciate you being on the chat tonight.
Well, thank you guys. It's good to see you. I'm sure I'll see you guys in the future. And thanks for having me on. And thanks to Laurel. Yes, you're right. Most of my best ideas were hers.
Man, you said it all right there. So, folks, we'll see you later, and God bless.
See you guys.
See you now. Bye.